All right, welcome back. It is August 16th. Sounds from the crowd, hanging out with the boys, DA, DB, and Raina. How we doing today, fellas?
I'm hurting. I'm hurting for my boys. They just missed the playoffs. I'm hurting.
I expected it, so I can't say I'm
Those are
as
the
sad as I
Spurs
thought it was going to be.
fans. Those are the Spurs fans. Raina, if you're not watching, has a Spurs hat along with the Admiral across his back, which is a great jersey. And DB, he has the COVID mustache going on again. I thought those were shaved by now.
Yeah, I was just wanting to change it up a little bit. And I don't know that I've ever rocked a mustache, so I think I'm just going to do this for a little bit. And we'll see where it goes.
I unfortunately have never rocked a mustache, and I can't because my dad just has the most solid stash I've ever seen, and I will never do it justice. And it's straight handlebars, and it's just, solid. I've never seen him without it. If you shaved it and walked past me, you'd probably be a stranger.
There are even pictures of him in high school with that mustache all the way down.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. All right, so we're still, unfortunately, in the middle of a pandemic, but we got some live sports here. We have some major news and some shakeup in the college football arena, and we had the Pac-12 and the Big Ten both bow out of this year's 2020 season. I'm going to kick it to Raina first. What do you think of that decision of those two to call it quits?
Well, I think it's the right call considering it's college sports. But at the same time, I think that a lot of people want to see it happen. I don't think they had a plan yet, not compared to what the NBA has. So if they can't really pull off a plan of that type of safety protocol, then I think you're running a huge risk. But don't tell that to the South and SEC.
Right. So I think we can all agree, DB, that the SEC, everyone was looking at them to see what they're going to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, the SEC is definitely the leader, in a lot of ways, and you kind of knew they were going to have some sort of plan to play in some capacity, but you can kind of make the argument that it's geographically based, but then you've got a guy like Justin Fields who's got this big petition going online to try and reverse the Big Ten decision. So to me, that shows, it might sound a little bit crazy, but it does seem like a lot of the players do want to play. And when if I'm a guy like Justin Fields who stands to benefit massively off of having a potentially Heisman winning season, I get why he wants to play.
Yeah.
And when you're young and you feel invincible, I get why those guys want to be on the field.
So I think there was also just kind of a study that came out and showed that there's scar tissue on the heart as a long-term side effect of contracting the virus, which is kind of also a reason why, we're trying to protect these kids from getting it, right? They may not, die or get really sick initially, but putting them at risk in long-term health, I think also is ultimately why Big Ten and Pac-12 decided that they didn't want to do it. I know Danny has some feelings about how the Big 12 handled their situation.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, with A&M here in Texas moving to the SEC and those two conferences together with the amount of revenue they put together, I think that, it was more in the Big 12's financial interest to be going with the SEC rather than against them. I can't see them pulling this off, because now you're going to have, you were only talking about the Power Five. What about all the conferences that don't rely on football revenue?
Right.
They're not going to be pushing that to play sports.
Right. And I think, who was originally, I think the Ivy League were the first ones to cancel their seasons right away.
Yeah,
right. Smart people were the ones who bowed out, maybe because they know some things that no one else is paying attention to. But then you have also coaches who, they're just absolutely like, we need football. You got those hard ass coaches like Nick Saban and my man in LSU.
Go Joe, go Tigers.
Coach O, and they're all hell bent on it. Which it's football's different in the South, right?
Yeah, there's no. I mean, it's the biggest thing that's going on in a lot of those states is college football, and every Saturday, I mean, the whole weekend is built around that big Saturday game. So I definitely understand where everyone's coming from on wanting to have it. It brings a lot of normalcy to them. So I get it. But I have my issue with NCAA and them pushing money and then the way they act with money, and this is kind of like shit hits the fan with like, we got to go out there and play football. Well, is it amateur sports anymore or is it, straight pro money talks, which obviously it does.
Yeah, we're dealing with that even at the high school level, especially here in Texas. UIL still, putting out things that we're going to have football season just start in October. Like, I mean, it's just I think it's just part of the world we live in, being down here in Texas. So, and I think it bleeds over to the South and Southeast for sure.
Yeah, and it leads into professional football, right? Because we expect professional football to go, but it's different because they're getting paid millions to do that, right? That's their livelihood. Yeah. When the majority of these college players are not going to play in the NFL. Right. So then it's like, well, where do we draw the line? Now, how is it fair to the West, to the Pac-12, and why can't they play? And what's going to happen to their draft stock? So I think it's it's fucking can of worms right now. No one really knows what to do with it. Right.
Yeah. Anyone who thinks that they know how it's going to pan out is probably full of it. It's football is just a real difficult thing to predict how this is going to play out.
Right. And you like to think that, in a perfect world, nothing happens. And I was talking with some of my fellow fantasy football players. Speaking of the NFL, it's like, well, do we play fantasy football league? Because there's a good chance that week 4, there's 3 canceled games. And what do we do with that?
Well, I'll tell you, you keep playing fantasy football and stop being a bitch about it. Let's go. Let's go.
Next man up in fantasy football.
You build a better team is what you do. That's what you do.
I mean, and it could happen as quick as, okay, I have one guy playing on Monday Night Football and I need 8 points to win. All of a sudden, Monday Night Football is canceled. And what are we going to be okay with that?
Were you talking to Rick? Shout out to Rick. That sounds like a Rick.
I mean, I'm just saying, are we going to be okay with that? Because then I don't want Raina coming at me like, that's bullshit because I needed 8 points and my game got canceled. And what do we do?
I am the person that rides both sides. Yeah, I do complain about unfortunate circumstances and say like, that's what cost me. But I don't complain too much. I take it. I take my L's.
And it's crazy because football is supposed to start in like 3 weeks. Like, it's not like it's far away at all. It's supposed to happen like in the next couple days.
And unless I've just missed it. Yeah, unless I've just missed it, I haven't heard very many details regarding their protocol. So, I mean, who knows, man?
Apparently on Hard Knocks, they're doing Hard Knocks on the Rams and Chargers, and apparently they're doing a pretty in-depth on what's going on with sanitation and things like that. So I need to probably watch that and kind of get a little closer to it. But I know that they're all doing these summer camps now, and then I don't know. What is the quality going to look like? What is anything going to look like at this point? Who knows?
If we do end up rolling with fantasy, the waiver wire is going to be insane.
Yeah, for sure. You're going to have to be on that. And maybe it's a thing where now instead of you open up roster spots, right? Like 24 roster spots or 20 roster spots instead of just the normal 17 or however many.
No, that's true.
But that's in a few weeks. What we do have is we just had a pretty interesting bubble situation in the NBA. We saw some teams emerge. The damn Suns went 8-0. Unfortunately, they didn't make the playoffs. And some people are like, oh, man, poor Suns, they didn't make the playoffs. So I say, how about you do better in the regular season? Huh? How about that?
What a hater.
And I know the Spurs fans are thinking the same thing. Oh, man, we played so well because they did. But, hey, maybe you should have played better in the regular season. Just get rid of the hundreds already.
There's been at least a few guys. I mean, I guess you could say it's for every team, but I always think back to like, it was a couple of years ago, Rain, I don't remember when the Spurs lost the 1 seed or the 2 seed I forget, because of the last game of the season, they blew it or whatever. And it's just every time, man, it just comes down to like this one game. It's like, and for me, the bubbles when they were up by 5, I think with 40 seconds to go against the Sixers, and then they lost.
Yeah.
The Spurs weren't beating the Blazers anyways, I don't think. I mean,
that's true, but if they get in the playoff game, if they get in the play-in game, technically they still kept the streak alive, right?
Nah, I was only giving it if they got the 8th seed. I said if they would have got the 9th seed or gotten to the play-in game and lost, we missed the playoffs. The series.
That's fair.
The 7-game series is what.
That's fair. Yeah.
I think that playing game was incredible. I thought that the electricity was
it felt like playoff basketball, whereas so many of the basically the week before was just a lot of rinky-dink games with stars sitting out and stuff, and that third and fourth quarter was hard to not. You didn't want to go to the bathroom. You didn't want to look away from your TV.
Yeah, and then we're all wondering what Dame's gonna do, and then all of a sudden CJ McCollum just drains like 15 in the fourth quarter and puts the Blazers ahead, and John Morant is
a lot of fun to watch.
Incredible. He's and there was also maybe Raina's boy
Zion, the thing Zion.
Should be rookie of the year instead of Ja. And Raina, what do you think about that?
I think the concerns of Zion are pretty substantial at this point. I mean, it's obvious that he can score buckets like no other. When you looked at his production for the limited minutes, it's off the charts. I mean, I think he was the second highest point scorer on a rookie year since I forgot who the stat was, but there's not been many, people that have been able to get his type of points. Right. But I don't see him being able to put the 30, 35 minutes a game in anytime soon either. So Ja by default is a better player because he's on the court more.
I mean, what other rookie has a weight problem that can get you fired as a coach? Right? I mean –
man, they were ready though. They were ready to fire him.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. And you have Pelicans fans saying, oh, it's not Zion's fault. Alvin Gentry should have won more games with that roster. It's like, okay, I guess, yeah. But it's at the same time, it's you got the number one pick for a reason. Like, let him have all his players, man. Let him have all his horses and then just see what he does.
And what's fucked up is they didn't fire Alvin before the bubble. And so now he can't even collect the additional Donald John unemployment money since our Congress people can't agree on anything. So shout out to Alvin Gentry just getting done dirty.
Yeah, unfortunate.
Yeah. And I mean, regardless, I think the bubble play was incredible. There was some low, but for the final spot, for those lower teams that were just like the Blazers basically played 8 playoff games, right? And it was fun to watch. Melo had some big shots. Dame, of course, went crazy. We saw CJ Nurkic. Yusuf Nurkic is a freaking monster, dude. I love that guy. I like watching him play. He's gonna be a problem these next few years. Absolutely.
I think, yeah. The Blazers should have never been in that spot, by the way. They went to the Western Conference Finals last year. They should have not been playing.
Well, yeah, I know. Well, Nurkic got hurt, and I mean, I guess that was really it.
Yeah, they played terrible all year. No, there was a lot of issues with that team, I think, chemistry-wise, and the bubble let them reset a little bit.
Right.
But they shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah, they definitely benefited from the rest and getting healthy. But let's kind of go through these playoff series and go around and see what we think about them. Starting off with the Lakers-Blazers. I'm a Lakers guy. I'm going Lakers easy. Not easy, but I would say that it goes 6 games, if that, maybe 5. What do you guys have on the Lakers-Blazers? Anybody think they can get out?
I'm in complete agreement with you. I think probably 5-6 games. I don't know that the Blazers can take them the whole length, but they're going to make them work for it. Right. And you can argue, aside from the Suns, that no team was really hotter down the stretch, so they're playing good basketball right now.
And on the other end, no team is colder down the stretch than the goddamn Lakers. Shit. Danny?
I say 6 games, Lakers also, and I think Dame's going to drop 50 in at least 2 games, just to give them a fighting chance, because I think they'll be playing from behind a bit for the most part. But I think it's going to be a better series than your normal 1-8.
Better than the other side, right? And we'll get to that one soon, but that other side is going to be a nightmare. Raina, what do you think?
Yeah, I would give the Lakers in 6 as well, but I give the Blazers a 20% chance of stealing it.
Damn, 20%.
Yeah,
next,
I think they're hot.
We'll stick with Raina on this one because I know you like this one. Is Clippers Mavs? Who do you got coming out? Clippers Mavs.
I got 4-1 Clippers.
5 games, Clippers and 5. Mavs are having a hard time with them. DB, Clippers Mavs. What do you think?
Yeah, I would have liked to see Luka land somewhere where he had a better chance of getting to a second round. Because I think the playoffs would be better to have him in it. But Clips take care of business pretty quick. Okay. 4 or 5 games.
I'm going to go 6 games to the Clippers. I think the Mavs will catch them at least twice. I don't think the Clippers have yet hit their stride. They're still kind of figuring it out right now.
Yeah, and they're going to get Montrez back, and then Pat Beverly has been resting a lot, and Lou Will. Everyone's kind of, and then they found some pretty good role players too in this bubble situation as well, which I was surprised at. So yeah, I think Clippers would get it pretty easily, but Luka definitely is going to have a few good games, I think, in that one. Start out with DB here. Rockets and Thunder. We got James Harden, Brody Westbrook going up against OKC. What do you got?
So I definitely, living in Houston, I want the Rockets to win. And I think that Houston has kind of taken on this narrative of being like a little bit of an underdog or this kind of media darling. A lot of people are picking them. This series is going to be harder for them than you think. Russ is already going to miss game 1, potentially into game 2.
Yeah.
And Oklahoma City has a good team. I think ultimately the Rockets get out, I'll call it 6 or 7 games, but I would not be surprised at all if Oklahoma City pushed it to 7 games for 1 and potentially won the series.
Yeah, I think that this Oklahoma City team is like they came out of nowhere. I think I saw something that there was like a 5% chance of them making the playoffs when the season started. And then whatever happened, Chris Paul, Billy Donovan, they're fucking just killing it. SGA is the man. And Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go 7 on this one, only because of the Russell Westbrook uncertainty. If he was playing, I'd probably actually go 5 if Russ was healthy. I think I see Russ being the type of person to want to just kill the Thunder because of their former team. I see him having that personality.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I think but at the same time too, right, in the past, I think when Russ tries too hard, that sometimes works against him as well. But I definitely see Houston moving on this one.
Yeah. Raina?
I say the Rockets are probably the most incomplete team in the playoffs, but they have the highest variability of being able to play good or bad. So I see 7 games with Oklahoma City and barely sneaking it if they can.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot like the Lakers-Blazers in the sense that I think every game is going to be pretty good. I think Houston's a better team when James Harden is playing and not Russell Westbrook is playing versus when Russell Westbrook is playing and James Harden isn't. James Harden is definitely the heart of that team. But I would say James Harden is the engine of James Harden makes it go, but Russell Westbrook is the
tough turbo. Yeah, he's the turbo of that team. For
absolutely.
Sure.
Makes that team above. He puts them above and beyond. So, yeah, I'm taking Rockets to 6 or 7 games. And then the last one, Danny earlier was talking this one, so we'll start here. Nuggets and Jazz. I know this is
rated, baby.
We're kind of yawning at earlier. Nuggets and Jazz. Raina's getting pumped up. We got Jokic versus the Stifle Tower. Rudy Gobert, Mr. COVID himself.
Yeah, I think Denver has been quietly flying under the radar for the last couple of years. I think their roster, they have a very talented roster, and I think they pulled this one out actually pretty easily. I think for Utah, I think the break actually hurt them. where there's a lot of teams where the break helped them. I don't see that happening for Utah. I think they were dealing with a lot of drama because of how the whole COVID thing went down and how, they were the game that got canceled first, and then it all kind of fell from there. So, I see Denver taking this in 6.
Yeah. Raina, what do you think on this Jazz Nuggets?
I share very similar views on 6 Nuggets. Nuggets are a very solid team, but whether or not they have the star power, whether or not they actually have the big guns to compete with the better teams is their question.
Right. Yeah, and I like Murray. Jamal Murray's good, but I think you're saying is that like they're just neither him or Jokic have really shown I'm going to take over this game, right?
Jokic is by far the better player, but Jamal Murray is a very good, like, streaky player. Like, he can get going and really get you some buckets.
Yeah. DB, Jazz, and Nuggets. Who you got?
Well, this series is about as exciting as watching Mormon people have sex. What a snooze fest. I just hope that if you could press fast forward through that, I'd be fine with it. Michael Porter Jr. is a fun player to watch, but I want to say the rich, creamy Nuggets in about 6 games.
Yeah, I would say even 5 is possible because I think the Jazz are they're just there to fill a spot at this point. We talked about the Blazers and Mavs who are seated below them. They have a better chance at moving on than the Jazz do, and they're more exciting too. The Jazz, I don't know. There's just nothing exciting coming out of this series. Hopefully it's over in 5, but we'll see. Moving on to the East, we kind of touched on it just a little bit earlier, Bucks and Magic. Speaking of snooze fest, right? The only good thing is that we get to see Giannis in action. Raina, what do you got, Bucks Magic?
Unless Giannis headbutts every single game, it's a sweep.
4 straight?
It's 4 straight headbutts and just headbutts. It's a sweep.
DB?
Yeah, we're this one's gonna be quick work. I think the Bucks are pretty determined and they take care of business and get ready for round 2.
Yeah, they're just way better. Danny?
Yeah, sweep.
Yeah,
not close.
Magic they don't have a shot. It's ugly. Next, DB's Raptors versus the Nets. Raptors versus
we are the
Nets.
North.
The sneaky Nets, by the way. The sneaky Nets. I know Raina sent us a text where his mom gave us a really stellar breakdown of
Shout out to mom.
what? Yeah, shout out to Mrs. Raina. But she gave us a sneaky breakdown of the Nets and how they're not terrible. But I know DB, you sneeze at that because tell us about your boys.
The Raptors are the best team in basketball. They have the best coach in basketball. They have the best fans in basketball, and they're not here to play binky bonky. These guys are going to win this series. They'll take care of business quickly, and they've got a lot to prove. I think they want to prove that last year – they already have proven that last year was not a fluke, but I think these guys have a chip on their shoulder to prove that it wasn't just Kawhi Leonard, and I really like how they played in the bubble.
Yeah. And I one of their players, Kyle Lowry, has taken over as the most annoying player to watch from me. He took over. Chris Paul was first, but now it's Kyle Lowry who's first because they're just freaking annoying. Pat Beverly's above all of them. I hate watching Pat Beverly. But Chris Paul's both of them always just call fouls, cry for fouls every single play. But I do think the Raptors are great. Danny, what do you got? Raptors and Nets.
Yeah, Raptors sweep. I think they're playing well. I think they're all shouldering a little bit of more weight now that Kawhi is gone, and I think they're playing more as a team than they were last year.
Right. I think that the point that Drew made, and you're right about the whole Kawhi thing, and that it wasn't just him. I really do like the Raptors too. I think this Nets can sneak 1 or 2 in though, so I would say 5 or 6. Probably leaning towards 5 because I don't know if you guys have been watching these Nets. They could score the goddamn ball. Man, I've been a victim of taking the unders on them, and it hasn't come out well on me. Raina, what do you got? Raptors, Nets.
Well, I just want everybody to remind everybody that Kawhi did average like 32 or 33 points a game last year in the playoffs. So they're not the same Raptors, but I'm gonna give 4-1. But I don't see them going back to the promised land.
They're definitely not the same, but I think their Eastern Conference Finals easy. I think them versus the Celtics.
They have to go through Boston.
I think them versus Celtics is going to be really really good series. Next, that leads us into Celtics versus 76ers. And, no Ben Simmons, but is that good or bad for the 76ers? Because they have chemistry issues all over the place. And maybe Joel Embiid is a better player without Ben Simmons on the court. Danny, what do you think? Sixers versus Celtics.
I think I'm not saying the window is closed, but I felt like the 76ers, when they had that big turnaround and that, I think it was 2 years ago after having just terrible seasons, and then it was the trust the process. I think after that season, that should have been the season where they got over the hump. And I think now that they haven't, I think it's time to change up the roster. So I don't see them beating Boston. I think Boston is well coached, and they're going to be well prepared to kind of take out, especially without Ben Simmons, to kind of expose the 76ers' weakness in this lineup. So, I mean, it'll be 6 games just because I think this is a good rivalry. They don't necessarily hate each other, but I think the cities hate each other,
Yeah.
It has a lot of old school feel to it back when Dr. J was with the 76ers and there was a little bit of thing going on with Larry. So right. I think it goes 4-2 Boston.
And Boston might not have an answer for Joel Embiid. If Joel Embiid wants to play, I think he could take it to him. Because who's going to guard him? Enes Kanter?
Well, okay, but who does Philly have to stop Jason Tatum?
No. Boston's out. Boston's going to outclass him in all sorts of areas. But
it could be like
in there.
Yeah, it could be like an old Phoenix Spurs series where Stoudemire would average 40, but then they lost 4-2, 4-1,
And Timmy D hits a game-winning 3, and was that game 1 or he was one-time?
It was game 1, double overtime. It was Fiesta Saturday, baby. Oyster Bake Fiesta Saturday, I remember.
Man.
Raina, Celtics 76ers, what's your take?
I have the Celtics as my number 2 team in the East. I haven't liked the 76ers in the playoffs. Last year, they had a really good team. They couldn't get the job done. This year, losing Simmons, I think they can get 5, maybe 6. But yes, all right, you're right. Embiid is a beast, so put it on Embiid if you want to win more games.
Right, for sure. But they're just not built for a team without Ben Simmons. Like, that's what they want, right? DB, what do you got?
And yet another stirring example of our justice system failing. Kawhi Leonard is still a free man, despite the fact that his bounce-in shot murdered the Philadelphia 76ers last year. They're fucking bums. They should fire the coach. They shouldn't trust the process because it stinks, and the Celtics will move on.
Yeah, that might have absolutely ripped the heart out of Philadelphia, of that team, right? Of that core that, like, Kawhi just might have destroyed them. The way LeBron destroyed the Raptors before, when it was Lowry and
DeRozan.
The way LeBron destroyed them, that might be the way Kawhi destroyed the 76ers. I'm all on for the Celtics. I would like to see the Celtics take out the Bucks, but man, it just seems that Kemba Walker is a no-show. I think he was broken. I think he's broken. I think that's the reason why Charlotte didn't want to offer him all that money, is because I think his knees are done. He's not playing. He's not driving. Maybe he's resting for the playoffs. But
yeah, they're going to need a lot from Tatum and Brown. They're going to have to do most of the work.
Right, but I mean, imagine if Kemba was healthy. Like Kemba was a beast, and he just I think he's done, man. Unfortunately, who's the player for the Blazers? Brandon Roy. Remember Brandon Roy?
Oh yeah,
where he was just killing it for a few years, right?
Yeah,
me and Rick were talking about that the other day, and it's like it might be a Brandon Roy situation where we saw the best of Kemba in his first 5 to 7 years, and then, he might retire at, 33. That sucks. But regardless, I'm taking the Celtics. No Ben Simmons. It's really hard to go past that. And then the last series is Heat Pacers. We got TJ Warren versus Jimmy Buckets. I know DB's a fan of the Jimmy Bucket commercial. It almost made him switch to Michelob Ultra, but he has a brain, so he didn't. DB, what do you got on Pacers and Heat?
I do like that commercial, and I do like Jimmy Butler, and I do like Bam. I think the Heat are a good team. Eric Spoelstra is actually a really good coach, and I think he's proven that in the post-LeBron years. So definitely expect them to get through, and I could see them making some noise in the playoffs. They've got a kind of an exciting team.
Yeah, I agree, man. I like the Heat. I like Eric Spoelstra, and I don't really trust the Pacers. Danny, what do you think?
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing about Spoelstra because I was a huge naysayer of his when he was with LeBron. I figured LeBron kind of made his name, made Spoelstra who he was, but he's done a really good job coaching, especially the last few years when they didn't have much of a roster. I do see the series going 7 games, though. I think this is going to go back and forth, and I think the Heat will take it, but I think it's going to be a closer series than people would imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, no Victor Oladipo. I mean, he's a shell of his former self. Speaking of injuries, right? Sabonis is hurt too. So I mean, those are the top 2 players that aren't playing, but it's allowed us to see what TJ Warren has to offer. And I know Reina is a fan of the TJ Warren versus Jimmy Buckets beef. What do you got?
Man, I got the Heat probably in a 4-1. I think it's going to be a good series, but I do have the Heat. Yeah. I have Tyler Hero as being the sneaky, watch him get hot. I think the Rook can bring it, so yeah, I'll be watching him.
Yeah, I like Tyler Hero too. That guy's a beast. I'm taking the Heat as well. Probably 6 games. I think that they could probably sneak to. The Pacers can probably sneak into, but I think ultimately it comes down to coaching as well. And like Danny, I was a Spoelstra hater. I was like, that guy's just, it's not hard to coach LeBron, but it also says a lot when you got a guy like Pat Riley co-signing, right? And he's like, no, this is my guy. And so it took me a little while to mature up to that. To that.
Also, shout out to Kelly Olynyk, who looks like Scott Stapp from the band Creed. Pretty awesome.
I think the one thing that I'm most interested in seeing in the playoffs is what teams like all of a sudden turn it up and they're a different team than they were these last 8 games, because I think there's quite a few teams, especially in the West, where it's kind of like they knew where they were going to end up for the most part. I mean, I know that I think the 4 through 7 seed were pretty close, but
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like if the playoffs are a different thing, and I think you guys are mentioning that you saw that in the play-in game between the Blazers and Grizzlies, like it was a completely different level of play. Yeah. And so I'm interested to see, what teams are gonna show up. As far as what version of what teams are going to show up.
The Lakers are at the top of that list. They were just freaking terrible. All bubble play, man. Like, I didn't see any good play out of the Lakers. And
do you think that they just wanted to lock in the one and that's it? They checked out?
I think LeBron is at a point where he plays when he wants to play, which is what pisses me off about him.
Well, hey, but at least he doesn't take 25% of the season off like Kawhi.
Damn.
Very true. Yeah, but that Finals MVP still with the claw. But
but it talk. So I know DB was looking at some series and some futures bets for the playoffs in the Western Conference. The Clippers and Lakers, I have them at plus 135. Both of them are plus 135 to win the Western Conference. Basically you're saying that they're even, right? They're thinking that the Western Conference Finals will be an LA showdown, and it's possible that you can grab some there. The Rockets, I know a lot of people are looking at the Rockets. I have them at 850 plus 850 if they can sneak out of the West and make the finals. And then just for fun, what if Portland just decides to go crazy on us and throw it out there? They are plus 1250 if you want to throw a little juice on Portland. DB, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I've got a couple tasty ones here. As I mentioned, I want the Rockets to advance, but it wouldn't shock me if the Thunder pulled off an upset. Got that at plus 125 for the series odds. I think there's some good value in that one. And then when I'm looking at championship odds, I always like cupcakes growing up. So when you like cupcakes, you got to like sprinkles. So I would suggest that you sprinkle a little bit of juice on the Celtics at plus 950. And then much like you guys try to compare everything to the Spurs, I like to bring it around to the Raptors, the best team in the league. They're also plus 950, and there's some value there. So we can like those as a couple throw a little bit at it and sit down and just enjoy it for a good month of basketball.
Yeah, I think that the two I would take there are the Rockets and the Raptors. I think that's not, it's not dead money. I think that money would be alive and well.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Would you say the Raptors were, Andrew?
Plus 950.
Yeah, that's nice. And Raina, I know on the East you like the Celtics at plus 400.
I would say they're the better bet over the Bucks, just because you're not getting as much back. But the Bucks are heavily favored. But I still got to see it from Giannis.
Yeah, the Bucks are at minus 175, and that's you're paying a lot. They are obviously the best team in the East, right? You're paying a lot for them to basically be flawless and not mess up, right?
Right.
I don't know if that's a great bet to make.
And not the track record yet, I don't think in the playoffs. Just
right, and then with the bubble, anything could freaking happen. I mean, we're talking about the Raptors, DB's boys, and they are very well capable of upsetting somebody.
There's no home court. No home court. That's gonna be different.
Yeah, so I found out the hard way this week that there was no rhyme or reason for anything that's happening in the NBA at this point, right?
Yeah, but bubble basketball, as of now, has been hard to predict because you don't know who's actually giving a shit. So I think in the playoffs, the stars start showing up, and the guys like TJ Warren aren't getting you 50. You have guys like Kawhi, you have guys like Giannis, putting up their stat sheet. We'll see it go back to normal, I think, once the playoffs start.
Yeah, you think that once the playoffs start, everyone's going to kind of fall into where they've been all year?
They're the first, second seeds for a reason. The bubble didn't make you better basketball players. It just meant the better basketball players took some time off.
Yeah, right. But I do also think that the Lakers are a worse version of themselves in the bubble.
Their team has a very little depth, I would say. That's my one concern about them. They have the best two players on the roster, but their third player doesn't hold any weight compared to the Clippers' third best player, even like the Nuggets. So their depth is just not there. That's my opinion.
That's pretty. That sucks. It's kind of scary to see what could possibly happen in the bubble in a series and what's going to happen. Final takes on the bubble. What do we got? How do we think that the bubble played out?
I think from the health standpoint, it did what it was supposed to do. The fact that they are having very few to little interruptions, especially anything involving players getting sick, I think, again, they've just kind of proven that they're the league that has it the most together, although their ratings are taking a hit. So we'll see if the playoffs help.
Right. And real quick on that, the ratings, and I don't know who I was talking with on this. I think it was with DB and Raina. I think the ratings took a hit too because they're playing in the middle of the afternoon on a Wednesday, and you're not going to find a whole lot of people watching those games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Overall, primetime game, I don't think the NBA has any issues of getting eyes on the screen.
Yeah, Raina called it. Tomorrow's going to be a jacked work day.
Yeah.
We're watching. If any coworkers listen to this podcast, I am not watching any NBA playoff games. Be very slow to respond on email.
Hey, the bubble, the last playing game, did you like that?
Man, it was awesome. I think there's a lot of good going on with the NBA right now. For so long, the NBA was like the Warriors and LeBron. And
right.
Right now, you've got a lot of different stars on a lot of different teams. There's just some exciting players to watch. I mean, from guys like Damian Lillard to Houston's weird small ball experiment to can Giannis take the step from being the best regular season player to the best player in the NBA? There's just a lot of awesome storylines going into it, and it's super unpredictable, which is awesome. You know, I think a number of different finals pairings could happen, and that's good. That makes the playoffs interesting.
Yeah.
Of course, you're going to have a couple stinkers in the first round. That's inevitable. But once we start moving into the Final Four on each side, we're going to have some really, really good series. And I think we'll also have some good ones in the first round.
Yeah. I like the vibe of you're literally sending teams home, right? Like this team just lost the series. All right, they're going home and everyone is staying. So you're literally only going to have 2 teams and 1 team left staying.
The Dame.
The Dame, yeah, you're literally bye. See ya. Get out of here. But yeah, that's been great. So overall, man, it's been good. Like DB said, this week coming up is going to be a whole lot of fun. And then once football comes back, we'll just bump that up even more. But we're going to throw out some content, some playoff series looks, some breakdown on Giannis's, what he needs to do to become, you know, that standout that we know he is or we think he is, and all that good stuff. If you're listening to this, subscribe, rate, review. We appreciate it. This Sounds from the Crowd, August 16th, 2020. We'll check you guys next time. Later.